Hi, this is video number 16 in a series of videos where we're making an FPS game in Unity 2017 for Android mobile devices. In the previous video we were doing some work on our gun, okay, and what we have now is we have a gun which which is attached to the player, okay, who can move around, and we can fire this gun, okay, and we can destroy objects, okay. But as you know, in the game, the demo game that we are currently rebuilding, the player actually has more than one gun. So for example, here they have a second type of gun and a third type of gun, and what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to show you how to set this up so that the player can choose between different guns. And if you listen carefully, this one is quite a rapid fire. This gun is like a regular default gun, and this one is like a blaster, okay. Doesn't fire shots very rapidly, but when it hits something it makes a lot of damage. Okay, so let's get started with that. So this video is concerned with swapping guns, okay. Good. So the first thing we need to do here is we need to create a button which we're going to be able to press, and when we press that button we're going to swap our gun, okay. Some of you may have noticed that the screen does look slightly different. While in between videos I changed this health color here to green, okay, and I changed the shoot button here from a square into a circular sprite, okay. That's the only difference. So what we're going to do is we're going to make another gun, another button to swap our gun. So to save time, I did this earlier. I created a second button, okay, and you can do that as well in your own time. Good. Now we need to make this button work, because at the moment this button doesn't do anything, and in order to do that we need to attach a script to it, okay. But before we do that, we need to actually get some guns. So you need to make yourself some models of guns, or get them from somewhere, okay, and import them into Unity. And I showed you in a previous video how to import stuff, okay. So here I have for example our player here. This is the player that we had before. Here's this gun, and we've been working on this script called player guns, okay. And today we're going to keep working on that script, but that script is asking us for 3 guns, okay, because we've got 3 types of gun, okay. And what you need to do is provide models for each of those. So I'm going to assume that you have your models, okay, and that you've made prefabs of those models, and that the gun here you have basically set yourself up with a cube, and change the mesh, and set your colors, your gun colors up to be mobile friendly, okay, and that in there. Alright, so once you load them in and you position them as a child of the player gun here, you can turn them all on, okay, and as you can see there's the 3 guns. Alright, there's the 2 pistols, it's the blaster, and there's the default gun. Good. Next thing you need to do is you need to position your guns. Again, it depends on your game, so I'm not going to spend time showing you how to position a gun, but basically you can come here and you can move the gun around however you wish, okay, by dragging it and pulling it, okay, along here until you get something that's comfortable with you on the screen. So once you've set your guns up, okay, then we can move on. So so we now have our guns imported into our scene. Our models have been put in, you've made prefabs of them, and you've positioned them correctly wherever you want, okay. Right, now we need to be able to swap between them and deal with things like rate of fire, the fire rate, and how much damage they cause per gun, okay. Good. So let's get into this script, play a gun script, and see what's happening. Okay, so for those of you who haven't watched the previous videos, suggest you do, because we're building this script up and we are slowly enhancing it, okay, to make our gun better. And in this particular script here, this is a continuation from where we left off in the previous video when we were concerned with this gun. Right, so take a screenshot now if you want to. That and that. Okay, good. So let's have a look here. So new things in this script are we have here something down here is that we have got these ones here, which is the swap guns. Okay, so I've made an array of guns, game object guns. Okay, and this is what's over here. So I've got my guns and I've dropped my guns and I've got 3 guns. I could have 50 guns in there, 100 guns, 1,000 guns, 1 gun. It doesn't matter. Okay, again, I like to put things in an array because it means that you can kind of code it out once and then just put as many as you want in there. Okay, good. Next thing I've got is we need to know what number gun we're using. So I've created an integer for that. And I've got something called the adjusted hit force. Now if you remember in a previous video, we were hitting this cube with a force of 200, and that was satisfactory to display that the gun was working. Okay, in this one we're going to need to adjust that hit force, and we're going to adjust it by the amount of damage that each gun causes so that it's in proportion to it. Alright, so if you've got a gun like the default gun which has a damage of 1, the adjusted hit force would be 1 times hit force, which would be 200. Okay, if you've got a blaster, maybe it's got a damage of 3, so the force would be proportional to that. So it'd be 3 times 200 is 600. So this blaster would hit that object with a force of 600. Okay, get the idea? So it's proportional. So that's what I've called here an adjusted hit force. I'll go through it with you in a second when we get to it. Next thing I've done here is I've created this this script into an instance, which means that we can access it from outside of this script, and that's very useful to do. And here I've basically said that if there isn't one of these scripts in the scene, then use this. But if there is already one in here, then destroy it. And that means that you only ever have one player gun script, which is very useful. Okay. Next thing we've added here is I've said, okay, right, we've got all of our guns here. I've said, well, for each gun in the guns, so for each gun in this array of guns, turn each gun off. Okay, set it false. Okay. Because when I start the game, I want to give the player the default gun. You can give them whichever gun you want. You could start off and give them the blaster if you want, but I in this example, I'm going to give them gun number 0 in the array. An array runs from 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. Okay, so the first gun in the array is going to have a value of 0. So I've turned all the other guns off, turned every gun off, and then I've turned back on the first gun that I want to give the player. Okay, and that's the default gun in this case. Next thing I've done is I've created a kind of a function here which uses like a simple counter which runs through the gun number. So for example here I've got gun number is 0. Alright, so it's counter. So I said here this function will, every time you press this function, change gun, gun number will increase by 1. So if the gun number is 1, again I turn everything off, and then I turn on whatever the gun number is. So in this case it's going to be gun number 1. So we would turn off the default gun and turn on the blaster. Okay. Now the blaster's got a different damage to the default gun, so I've given damage a new value and I've called it 3. The default gun has a value of 1, but this has a value of 3. And the fire rate of this blaster is slower. So the fire rate of the default gun is 0.15, and I've slowed this one down to have a fire rate of 0.5, but compensated for that by giving it a lot more damage ability. Okay, good. And for example, on the next one, I've said if the gun number's 2, then we set number 2 on and we reset the damage and its fire rate. Okay, this is a fire rate of 0.1. It's very fast. Okay, it's like machine gun like. And I've said, look, if the gun number is greater than the number of guns in that array, then just set gun number back to 0, which means that, okay, when we get to the last gun that we've loaded in, then just load the first one again, and it kind of keeps it going in a circular fashion. Again, turn everything off and turn the one you want on, and get your damage and your fire rate. Okay. You can set this up however you want, and there are other ways of doing it, but I think that as I'm trying to keep this course for like beginners, sort of up to like intermediate, there are other ways of doing it, but most people should be able to understand this. And also, yeah, I use this and there's no problem with it at all, and it's really kind of solid little piece of script, and it's very easy to see what's going wrong, and you can modify stuff really easily. Okay, with this. Good. So what that's going to do is that's going to basically, when we press our button, it's going to flick through the guns. Okay, good. So next thing we did down in this script, okay, again we've added to it. We've only added things, we haven't deleted anything, so only adding things. So then come down here and said, well, okay, here we said, right, look for, if we hit something with our gun and it's got this script enemy health attached to it, then send some damage over to that enemy health script to cause damage to that cube. Okay, and we said if there's a rigid body attached to the cube that we've just hit, or whatever we've just hit, as well as the enemy health script, then we're going to add some force. And we just said, right, the old script was hit rigid body force, hit force, and that was 200. That would be 200 for whatever gun you're using. But remember, we know that each gun has a different power, right, or force. Okay, and here I've said here adjusted hit force, which is this float here, which is like, is a kind of like a multiplier if anything. Okay, increases and decreases the value of hit force depending on which gun you're on. Okay, the damage of each gun. Said here, okay, adjusted hit force equals hit force times the damage. So for example, default gun, hit force 200 times the damage is 1. It's going to hit it with 200, force of 200, right? Blaster was damage of 3 times 200 is 600. It's going to hit it. It's going to hit that cube with a force of 600, etc., etc. Okay. Good. And then I said, okay, so now we've got our proportional damage based upon what gun we're using. Now we're going to apply that as a force to whatever we've hit. Assume it's got a rigid body attached to it and an enemy health script. Okay, so there you go. There's quite a lot of things in there, but they're all important. Okay, great. So let's save our script. All right, and I'm going to assume again that you've got your guns, you've loaded them in, you've made prefabs out of them. Here's your guns, and you've positioned them wherever you want them on the screen. Okay, you've dragged and dropped your guns in there. Okay, we're all ready to go over this player gun script. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to make this button work. Okay, so got this gun change button up here. We go on click plus, drag in this player gun script, which is on player gun. Okay, drag that in there, and then look for change gun. That's the function change gun we were looking at with the counter on it. Click that. Now what we've done is we've linked this change gun script button to this script, which is attached to the game object player gun here. Okay, good. So let's hit play and see what happens. Okay, so we're moving around. Yeah, that's all normal. Firing, that's all normal. Changing gun. Okay, now it's changing gun. Okay, good. So that button's now working. Now let's have a look. So what we said was the default gun. That's the default gun. Change the gun. This should be slower. That's correct. The fire rate's working, and this one should be faster. Alright, so that's working well, okay? Right. So just to quickly say this one more time. Remember here the damage value is being passed through to the enemy health script that's attached to the game object that we're shooting. Okay, and this damage, is really important, is proportional to each gun. Now if you don't do that correctly, you'll have a gun, it'll fire at different rates but the damage will remain the same. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out. Okay, don't forget to do that. Alright, good. Okay. So now we can change our gun and now we can shoot stuff. Alright, so let's have a look around and see what happens. Okay, I'm using an Xbox 360 controller joined up to this game. I showed you how to do that in a previous video. So, okay, let's start off with this cube here. We've got the default gun. Right, if you hold your finger down, you get like an automatic effect. Right, okay, so I'll swap my gun. Okay, like pressing this again. Okay. Swap my gun. Again, I'm doing this on a button on the controller here, but it works off the screen as I just showed you. Here, I'll swap my gun, and if we listen, look, see that it's a real rapid fire. Get to the default. All right, so you get the idea. Okay, good. So let's just give that. I always like to test these things like 2 or 3 times. So let's just double up some cubes. Well worth taking the time on this. Let's just duplicate this lot. Give ourselves so we can really test our gun. Okay. All right, then we can give us a chance to have a bit of a run around as well. Okay. See it working on the fly. Alright. Good. So just move those there, and we can just tidy up a bit. We'll go create empty. We'll just call them targets. Drag the whole lot in. Make sure this targets is zeroed out first. Okay, and drag the whole lot in. There you go. Okay, and then we can just close that lot, and then it's nice and tidy. Right. Okay, so we've got a lot of targets now. Let's have a run around and see if we can get a few of these with some different guns. Okay, so we'll start off with our default gun. Just check everything's working. Yep, that works. Yep. Okay, let's go for it. So we're on a default gun here. I'll choose this. So I'm going to fire. Okay. Yep. Okay, all seems to be working. Okay. Okay. Just gonna have another quick look at that. Just need to check this here. Okay, first gun. Yep, good. If you're not sure, always check. Okay, that's 2 shots, right? So this is what I'm getting at. Okay, so we've got this one here. This is the, just to stress this damage, this piece of script that I just pointed out to you again. Okay, right, here's our default gun. He shoots with a small amount of hit force of 200, and he's got there you go. Right, now if we change this to this blaster, okay, see his hit force is 3 times 200, that's 600, so you're going to see more pushback, okay, which we are, and it causes a lot of damage. Alright, so, and the last one is our machine gun type, well, pistols, but they act rapid fire. Okay, so there we go. Alright, okay, good. So if you're having trouble with this, okay, if you're having trouble with this, then always take a moment, get yourself some cubes, okay, and make sure everything's working fine. Alright, and then you're good to go. Great. Alright, good. So in the next video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some further enhancement on these guns, and we're going to put some recoil on there. Okay, good. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something. Please subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next video.